Hi, I'm Sandy Ray, founder of Sandra E. Ray CPA, where we alleviate financial headaches so that you can create a bigger impact. Today, I want to start off the year of 2024 with talking about the current issues in nonprofit accounting. Now, at its core, nonprofit accounting serves the same purposes as for-profit accounting. It literally accounts for the money coming in and the money being spent. It's important that your records be up to date and accurate because you're answerable to multiple stakeholders along the way. These reports convey the financial health of your organization. So what's different between nonprofit and for-profit accounting? Nonprofits face different demands on their time and resources than for-profit businesses do. We're being granted certain concessions for getting tax-exempt status, but we have more demands. We have donor requirements. We have, for example, donors can say, here's restrictions on how we want this money spent. We have watchdog organizations who are looking out for the public interest to make sure that we are complying with the things that we need to comply with and doing the things that we say that we should be doing. And we have established accounting rules that we need to be following so that we can look at one organization and compare it to another and just increase that transparency and donor trust for our organizations. So the first thing I want to talk about is ensuring that we have accurate and timely financial reporting. All of our organizations need to follow what's called generally accepted accounting principles, and that's GAAP. And GAAP is set forth by the Financial Accounting Standards Board, which is what we accountants know as the rules that we need to follow for accounting purposes. One of the major components of GAAP is timely and accurate reporting. And this is also required by the IRS. In fact, the IRS mandates an even higher standard to help provide transparency to donors. This means that our organizations must regularly complete a standard set of universal documents to create the complete financial picture of our organization. And that's going to be what assets do we have? What expenditures do we have? What liabilities do we have? What's our budget? All of these can be accounted for in the statements that are prepared that are specific to your nonprofit organization, but also standardized enough for comparison so that transparency is easily attainable. So it's easy to see why we have a higher standard for record keeping than our for-profit counterparts. And so having these extra things that we have to do requires extra time and attention. And this can be challenging because you're trying to focus on your mission and your constituents, and accounting can become just an overwhelming task. We don't want that to happen. We want you to be aware of what's required, and it's one of the reasons we're doing these videos. The next thing I want to talk about is the challenges around in-kind donations and grants. As you all know, grants are wonderful for our income, but then they bring their own set of challenges. On the cash inflow side, the grantor gets to determine when the cash is going to be received by your organization. If it's a cost reimbursement grant, you're going to be spending those dollars before you get them in. So there's challenges there. We may be receiving money up front, and if we don't spend it all, we may have to return what's unspent. And there's another challenge in tracking that. So we've got challenges on the income side, but we also have challenges on the expenditure side. We may have payroll. We may have somebody who's partially responsible for overseeing a grant, or is somebody who is providing direct services for that grant. So we've got to allocate payroll. We've got to allocate overhead if the grant allows, in addition to all of our direct expenditures. The other big item in non-for-profit accounting is in-kind donations. In-kind donations are wonderful. It's a way for donors to give us their time and their treasure in the form of non-cash contribution. Volunteers, items that can be given and used in our programming or in our operations on a day-to-day basis are a wonderful way for donors to bring, help us to bring our mission to fruition. But we have to account for these things, and that's not always easy. So we need to have a system in place that receives these items, that accounts for them, that values them, and puts that transaction in our accounting system. So that's another big challenge for us as opposed to a for-profit organization. One of the similarities is, just managing our compliance requirements, taxes, and we have audits. Let's talk about compliance. We're required by the federal government and our state governments to provide reports such as the 990 or charitable solicitation registration requirements that we have to comply with on an annual basis usually to make sure that we keep our tax exempt status. And it all comes down to public trust. So we have to do this in order to receive our tax exempt status, and the donors trust us enough to send us those funds. But we also have tax reporting requirements, and the biggest one being payroll taxes for our employees. All nonprofits are required to pay payroll taxes, just like for-profit organizations. The exception may be federal unemployment tax, depending on your tax exempt status. You may not have to pay that, but we do have to comply with all the federal and state rules for payroll taxes. Other taxes you may have to comply with, a common one is sales tax. If you're selling items and the proceeds of those items are going into your mission, we're allowed to do that. But do you have to pay sales tax? Do you have to collect and remit sales tax to your state or multiple states? Those are some of the tax related issues that we have. And then audits. Audits can be our independent financial audits, which are very helpful in getting grants. But the federal government and the state can also audit us for various different reasons. Our grantors can audit us for various different reasons. So we want to make sure that our records are in great shape and we can easily pull that information and get that information for the audits that we become required to do. And if you're getting enough federal money, as you know, you could be subject to the Single Audit Act, which means you have to have an annual audit. Now we're talking close to $1 million for federal funds, and that could be filtered through the state. But with that kind of dollar amount comes the ability to pay for that type of an audit. And we have to put that in our budgeting. So these are things that are, as far as compliance and tax, that we have to deal with on an annual basis. The other challenge that we are facing is talent and knowledge. Where do we get people that are talented and knowledgeable? We have to have people in our organizations that understand what these other challenges are. We have to have people in our organization who are experienced, who know how to handle the glitches that come about from time to time. And they have to understand that we've got various stakeholders in this organization. Not only is it the government granting us our tax exempt status, but we have to report to a board of directors who has a fiduciary responsibility for the organization. We have our constituents that we're trying to serve. We have a responsibility to them. So there's managing all those different stakeholders in our organization requires people with experience. And so I just want to kind of wrap up and say, at the beginning of the year, let's look at these challenges as opportunities. Where are we excelling? Wonderful, that's great, let's keep it up. But where do we need more work? Do you need somebody with talent in your organization and experience in your organization to help you address those items? Are we doing the right things in accounting for grants, our in-kind donations? Are we doing our compliance reporting properly? Are we making sure that all of our constituents have what they need as far as the in-kind donations and how we're tracking that? So just look at those challenges, take a step back, say, what do we need to do? Who do we need to bring in to help us with that? Do we have a volunteer or a board member with that kind of expertise? Or do we need to look for a consultant or a part-time or full-time staff member? So I just wanted to say, let's take a few minutes here at the beginning of the year, even though we're busy wrapping up last year, and start looking at 2024 and saying, this is what we need to do. I hope this was helpful for you. And I want to thank you for joining me today. Remember that creating a bigger impact starts with stopping the nonsense. If you're dealing with nonsense in your nonprofit organization, we'd love to help you cut through the noise.